Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and Jon O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
Is the Dagda actually real? Well, Dagda Yív agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And you would be surprised that I do get asked that question on occasion. And eh, it usually comes at a particular point in someone's spiritual growth journey, or not even spiritual growth. It might be just an intellectual expression or quandary or exercise that they're following down. And it is this idea that divinity or deity doesn't exist. Now, I am not for or against any particular stance on this. I think it's healthy to have questions, to have a broad and open mind when it comes to how we are engaging with this existence, this multifaceted expression of humanity, and even as a species, an expression of a creature on the planet in which we live. It's always good to be open-minded as much as we can and to follow question and curiosity. So I enjoy those conversations. I really do. And so I do get asked, is the Dagda actually real? And I suppose to forgo existential quandaries, quantum mechanics, and considerations. Oh, what's that guy? Cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am, or the idea of a gestalt in that if enough people think a thing is real, then it is real. Very famously shown in the Mandela effect, where people believe a particular thing, but it turns out that everyone's belief is wrong. And one of the more famous ones is that Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back says, Luke, I'm your father. He doesn't. He doesn't actually, he says, no, I am your father. He doesn't go, Luke, I am your father. But it's become so much of an understood circumstance that so many people believe that it is a thing. So there is actually a psychological element known as a gestalt. I don't know the source for that. I will probably look that up afterwards. But it is this concept that if enough people believe in a thing, then it exists because it is believed in. Now, does deity fall into this category or not? Or is deity something outside of that? Is divinity an expression of something else? Is it ancestors who have gone before us? Is it some metaphysical world or parallel reality that exists outside of our reality? There are so many different ways to look at this. But in order to try and niche it down to what I can talk about, i.e., the Dagda, and is the Dagda real? I'm going to have to put some of that stuff aside. I have very engaging conversations with some stimulating people who I meet, and we talk about those things in person because we can bandy it back and forward. But this is not the format for that. What it comes down to is the Dagda real? We can point at information, we can point at physical stuff, and then we can talk about experiential stuff, which lead us to a conclusion. So physical documents exist. We can point at literal physical documents from the medieval period that say the name Dagda, that describe the character Dagda, that describe who he is, and not just who he is, but his lineage. He is Dagda, son of Delbath, and he is of the Tuatha Danann line. The Tuatha Danann coming back into Ireland, being descended from the wife of Beotach, who is son of Irinbel the soothsayer, who was son of Nemid, which was the Nemidian tribe who came into Ireland, finding it empty after the Partholonian tribe, who had been in Ireland, wiped out by a plague. All of this exists in physical manuscripts. So we have this very detailed, written down information. And so it's information. Is it story? Is it fact? Is it history? Is it glossary? Is it analog? Is it fiction? There's a lot of actual information in there that we can point at history. When we get to the Irish lore broken down in its various cycles, not to get off topic, the last cycle is the cycle of kings, and that clearly crosses over in correlation with historical figures that we can point at. Here's literally this guy's grave. So as we go back, of course, we are moving back into that timeline of myth and legends and the mysticism elements of it. So this is where we find mentions of gods. But does any God exist? Does any deity exist? Again, broader circumstance. A lot of people believe in a one true God as handed to them by the belief in Christianity, which comes from Judaism, which comes from, well, okay, I'm not going to get into, yeah, I'm getting off track. Rein myself in, Jon. Um, but does that deity actually exist? It's something I'm exploring myself in my own ways and have been for many years in a work of fiction that may or may not ever make it out into the real world called Deity 404, as in Divinity Not Found. Um, so is the Dagda real? We have physical documents that actually are physically real. You can literally go, if you have the right credentials, and see these illuminated vellum manuscripts, which have this stories and the information on it. They might not be able to read it because it's written in Middle to Older Irish, but we know that it is translated, and this is the information that's handed to us. We have physical spaces, literally on the landscape of Ireland. There are places that are linked with those narratives. So it tells us about Green a fortress up in Donegal. We can literally go to Green It still stands. It talks about Newgrange and that area in the bend of the Boyne being like, this abundant landscape of the river goddess Boan, who is, again, the Boyne is named for her. That landscape exists. In the stories, it talks about him, the Dagda, going to Tara and digging the trenches of Rathbresh. If you go to Meath in Ireland, you can walk up the hill of Tara. You can see all around Ireland, and there's a section of that known as the sloping trenches, which again is the earthworks around all of these ring forts, these multiple ring forts that are on top of that hill. So there are very physical places, very real places in the physical landscape that we trace narratively back to the Dagda. Does that make him real? Does it not make him real? Well, we have to go and ask the real question when it comes down to divinity, and this concept of omniscience, not omnipotence, omniscience. Omniscience means the knowing of everything. So some of the deities are portrayed as being omniscient in that they literally know everything. They created reality, they created everything. Sure, they may have created free will, but they know everything that has happened, will happen, going to happen, and therefore, if they know everything, then everything that is happening is because they choose to allow it to happen, which means that we cannot have a gentle, beloved, loving God because all of these horrible, fucking terrible things exist in our reality. Um, so the only logical pull through from that is that we have a distant or vacant or a non-existent deity because all of these horrible fucking things that humanity does to each other. The Dagda is not omniscient. The Dagda doesn't know everything. And we see this clearly in the stories. Also, the Dagda is very powerful. He's literally called the good God because he's good at pretty much everything, but he's not all powerful. And we see that also in the story. So in the second battle of Moytura, the Coch Moytura, there's the meeting of the Met of the Goddess. So Lu goes and takes the seat of kingship. The Dagda goes with Nuada Dín Cecht Cuimhnú, and they have a bit of a conversation, and they bring in some other druids, and they're talking about where's this war going to come? How's it going to happen when the Fomorians invade? He has no fucking clue when, where, how the Fomorians are going to invade. He leaves that place and goes and has a conversation with his wedded couple partner, the Morrigan, and she's the one who tells him where it's going to go because she's a goddess of prophecy. She has that inside track. She has that perspective on it and the understanding of how things are going to turn out within a certain degree. Now, does this make the Morrigan omniscient? If you're, let's have a conversation at a time about that, maybe. But the Dagda is not omniscient. He doesn't know everything. Now, when it comes to omnipotent, he doesn't have the power over life and death initially. And that is a responsibility he takes up in the stories. So in the story of how Kermit is slain by Lou, the Dagda takes the body of his child to find the power to bring him back to life. And when he takes up that power, he binds himself with an oath that he will return the power over life and death, this club or staff. And he offers up as oath price his authority over sun, moon, land, and sea. So in those areas, he's given a very clear breakdown of what he can influence. We also have him listed as a king of the other world, as in the Dini Mott, the people of the other world, the She, in that he has authority over them. In a story where Angus ends up in a love sickness, they literally send the druid for the Dagda, and the Dagda's like, well, why are you talking to me about this? His mom fucking knows everyone I know, i.e. Boan. But the druid Finnegan is his name. He turns to the Dagda and goes, well, we know that, but we're coming to you because you have authority to talk to the people of the She and bring their side into it. But even then, the Dagda doesn't go in and demand that the kings of the She answer his call and do what he says. He goes to them and he communicates with them. He's like, okay, I'm looking for this She woman who my son is in love with to the point of being absolutely off his head sick. Um, so he doesn't know who it is. He has to go, he has to figure that out, he has to find out. He doesn't have oh, I'll snap my fingers and there's the manifest magic of it all. So he is quite potent, but is he omnipotent? Probably not. And so when he's not omnipotent, when he's not omniscient, he doesn't know everything, he's not all powerful, he does fall in a different category of divinity, this idea of ancestral divinity. And now we have bloodlines and families, again, as we move through the rest of the lore down to this historical elements, there are families and clans and Tua or tribe which claim descendancy from various figures who claim descendancy from Tua the Danann. Very famously, Cormac MacArt, or no, sorry, it's Neil Nichanach, Nile of the Nine Hostages, is said to be descended from Nuada, Nuada of the Tuatha De Danann Nuada, who had been king in Ireland. So this is all talking about the fact that as we look at the narrative, at these characters, at these individuals, at these expressions of humanity, or indeed maybe divinity and deity, we've a lot of very physical things that we can say, yes, this is real, so that may be real. Does it make it real? Does it not make it real? Who's to say at the end of the day? What it really then comes on to is why should we believe in it? Why should we consider it? Why should we even think about it? And that's where I find my own personal truth in this matter, because through the practices I engage in, inspired by my learning about the Dagda, I have made myself a better person for me. And I'm better able to serve my community in what they need. By learning about the music of the three strains of music played on by the Dagda on his harp, I figured out what emotional intelligence is. I was able to deconstruct some of the toxic programming I was handed as a young boy growing up in Ireland, told boys don't cry, where elements of my emotion were invalidated because boys aren't supposed to feel that way. Whereas the ancient mythology of Ireland, there is a literal good God that the other gods of the Tuatha De Danann turn around and go, yeah, he got that. He's called the good God because you can trust him to do anything. And he plays music that helps people dance, revel, joy, music that allows people to weep, mourn, and wail, and then music that allows people to sleep and rest and recover. Because that's the other price as well. When males are raised in toxic environments where anger is the only valid emotion, you're not allowed to be happy. You're not allowed to express like abundance. You're not allowed to dance around and giggle and laugh yourself silly. Because that's far too much of an emotion, an emotive expression. So it's not just that you're not allowed to cry. It's also you're not allowed to be joyful because then like, there's something wrong with him or you're gay. I.e. the old gay being like, happy. What's wrong with being gay if you're happy? Also, nothing wrong with being gay from a preference either. But that's part of the challenges. And what I have learned from those stories, from those narratives, is to look at emotion in a much more accessible way for me to be able to process through those. I read the stories about him being a father and how he acts as the all-ahar or the great and ample dad. And I'm like, yeah, those are the things that I need to turn up for my children, turn up for the community, turn up for people. I look at his concepts of leadership, his concepts of fair justice and judgment, but also the need, the lessons I learned from the failures of the Dagda. He loses his shit and he straight up kills some guys because of grief over his slain child, Kermit. But his child then corrects his behavior. He takes up this club, which brings his child back to life. The first thing Kermit does is, why should I have life when it's been taken from them? He raises a child who is safe, comfortable, happy, and capable to correct the adult's behavior when the adult is not living to the values and the ideals they should do. Kermit would not be able to do that if the Dagda hadn't made it safe for those discussions and set an example that Kermit wants to live to, but also, knows that he can speak to his parent about. That's a healthy fucking relationship between two guys as well, between father and son. And so there's so much that I have learned through all of these narratives, these ancient expressions, and then exploring the culture of Ireland. The idea of the multiple marriages, like a union of equals. which I believe is the wedding that we have between the union or coupling between the Dagda and the Morrigan. It means they are equally powerful in every way, shape, and form. So as much as people look at the Morrigan and, oh my God, powerful goddess, the Dagda is equivalent in power so that they share a level of authority. They might have different uses for the power. But even that structure, the cultural understanding of how tribes were made, how tuas were formed, how people interacted and engaged with the seasons, the cycles, the land. All of this I have learned from exploring ancient Irish mythology, and all of which I have learned has made me a better person, a better version of me. Now, here's me talking me, 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 me. How does that in any way equate to the Dagda and if he is real or not? Well, to be honest, I can't prove he's real. And I don't have to, because he's real enough for me. And if there is no Dagda, if as there is no divine element to this, and it is some form of personal delusion or psychosis I have tricked myself into or convinced myself into, the end result is I'm a better version of me. I'm more compassionate, I'm more considerate, I'm more able to look at good judgment, I'm more able to understand the benefits of hospitality and making sure people go away satisfied, cared for, emotionally aware, and emotionally clued in, and that they value themselves enough that they know that rest is not a reward. Rest is an entitlement. Rest is part of the work and part of the process. All of which I have learned by studying this figure, studying this information, all of these physical locations and all this physical media that we have that we can point at. And so the Dagda is real for me. I do personally believe in the presence of the Dagda in spiritual experiences I have had because I have been going through and working at this practice for quite some time. But I don't expect anyone else to. I don't expect anyone else to believe in the Dagda. If I was to offer an expectation to probably round this off, I would expect someone else to do the learning, explore the knowledge for yourself. And don't just read the information, engage in a practice. Build some form of experience based on what you're learning. If it's about the Dagda, if it's about the Nuada, if it's about Dean Kecht, learn the information, engage in some practice to build some experience, and then integrate that knowledge and the experience and see where you end up for yourself. For me, I have done that. And my conclusion works very well for my spiritual growth. The offerings and the honorings that I make for the Dagda as I go through my processes, the oaths and the bindings I have sworn upon myself in community, in family, and in blood with a tattoo on me, all of which serves my purpose towards a better version of me who's better able to educate, assist, and help other people in his community or his family or his locality or in and of himself purely because he needs it too. So is the Dagda real? Neat answer, not hard to say. He's real to me. And that works for me. So I guess the question really is, do you want to put the effort in and find out if he's real for you? We have a whole lot of free resources available for you, including a full class on the Dagda, free class on the Dagda. You can go to irishpagan.school/free to grab a list of those free resources. And in the irishpaganschool.com, you can find the Dagda domestic deity and hearth hero. So thank you very much for stopping by. Look after yourself. And until next time, slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.